Good morning. I'm Patrice Thompson, Director of Investor Relations with the Allegheny Conference on Community Development. I'm excited to welcome you to the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce 2022 First Friday Speaker Series. This series brings together the region's private sector and public affairs community to engage with elected and other public officials on issues that are important to the region's economy and quality of life. We are pleased to be joined this morning by Mayor Ed Gainey, who will talk to us about his administration's priorities and how we can work together to achieve these goals. First, I would like to thank our 2022 First Friday Speaker Series sponsors, BNY Mellon, and to invite Eric Botner, Chairman of BNY Mellon, Pennsylvania, to say a few words. We will then be joined by Stephanie Paschman, CEO of the Allegheny Conference on Community Development. Eric?
Thank you, Patrice. Good morning. Now, I'm Eric Botner, Chairman of BNY Mellon in Pennsylvania. BNY Mellon is proud to sponsor the 2022 First Friday Speaker Series, which brings together the region's private and public sector leadership to discuss key issues impacting both our city and our region. BNY Mellon has been serving individuals and institutions in this city and around the world for over 150 years. Our place in Pittsburgh is not just about jobs and business. It's about being a good corporate citizen and neighbor through our foundation giving, extensive employee volunteerism, and investments in projects that make an impact in our local community. We know Pittsburgh is a special place where creators and collaborators, elected officials, corporations, universities, not-for-profits, and many others work together to make Pittsburgh a great place to live and to work. A special thanks to the work that the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce does for their leadership in advocating for our region. In closing, we are thrilled to help support the kickoff of this series with Mayor Ed Gainey, who joins us just 1 month into his term. Mayor Gainey, we look forward to your comments, but more importantly, we look forward to working with you. Thank you, and now I welcome Stephanie Paschman.
Good morning, all, and thank you, Eric. We really are truly appreciative of the partnership with BNY Mellon and your leadership in the Allegheny Conference. More importantly, I am thrilled to welcome Mayor Ed Gainey. It has a great ring to it, doesn't it? As the first speaker of our 2022 First Friday Speaker Series, We know that Mayor Gainey has certainly had a challenging first month in the job, and the fact that he's making time for us only speaks volumes to how important the partnership is between the public and private sector. For more than 75 years, as you all know, the Allegheny Conference has worked with mayor after mayor in pursuit of our mission to make this region stronger, to build an economic future for all and improve the quality of life in Southwestern PA. The urban core is the heartbeat of our 10-county region, and we need to work with our mayor in a true partnership to make sure that we can bring this region to where it needs to be moving forward. We are so glad that Mayor Gainey is here to talk with us today about how we can work together, what we can work together with, and how we, more importantly, can support his time at the city to make his administration as successful as possible. I personally have known Mayor Gainey for many years as I worked in Harrisburg at the Department of Human Services. And what strikes me about Mayor Gainey is his incredible connection to understanding people's needs on the ground, from his deep roots raised by a single mother, understanding what people need and how to connect with them on the ground. But he also has a background in community development and served on the board of the URA. And so he puts together that incredible mix of economic development expertise and understanding people that truly will help us build an inclusive economy together. And that is what we're focused on right now at the Allegheny Conference, is how we do economic development in a way that is inclusive and allows everyone to thrive as we continue to grow and propel the city and the region forward. We've worked with Mayor Gainey at his state level from this organization, and we are just thrilled now to have the chance to partner with him more specifically in a partnership that can help us continue the important work we are doing in this region. In particular, we've had great work with him on criminal justice reform, which I think you know has been a signature project and important accomplishment of the Chamber of Commerce to date. And now we will be able to deepen that partnership and strengthen our relationships as we think about inclusive growth initiatives that helps the economy thrive. So with that, I'd like to spare no more introduction in introducing Mayor Ed Gainey of the city of Pittsburgh who will be in a conversation with President of Chamber of Commerce, Matt Smith, to help you understand what's on his mind and how we will pursue opportunities together. Mayor?
Good morning. I want to thank the Chambers for having me. I appreciate it. Want to get into a conversation with y'all. So my introduction will be brief so that we can have time for question and answer. I think that's the best way that we can really get to know each other and have a conversation about growth in the city of Pittsburgh. Again, I want to thank you. My name is Ed Gainey, and I'm happy to be here. You know, I want a relationship with the Chamber of Commerce. You know, I've always said that if we're going to build a city for all, it's because we're building relationships with one another to help us be able to establish a city that is for all. And so I'm looking forward to working with you. I'm looking forward to doing a couple initiatives that we discussed during the campaign. One, you know, as I said, I want to make this a welcoming city. So one of the things that I want to focus on is how we together make sure that our downtown corridor is clean, that we're making sure that it's clean for investment so that when people are down here, they feel safe. The more safe our city feels, the more investments we can attract. So I know that safety means cleanliness, and in the city, particularly downtown, we want to make sure that happens. We also want to focus on workforce development. That's critical. We want to create infrastructure so where we're taking people from workforce development programs straight into jobs. I always say the best way to ensure that is that it's nice to get an award for going through a program. I really appreciate that. A lot of people get awards, but I want to give them a reward. When they finish a program, they should go into a job setting. We also talked about in workforce development, setting a board, being able to convene a board that talks about how we bring our growth sector industries to the table with our trades, with our universities, as well as with our Pittsburgh public schools, because we know that we have a great future ahead of us when we talk about our AI, which is artificial intelligence, robotics, and several other in the technology field. And if we can create a pipeline on infrastructure, whether it's with curriculum or workforce development, it only makes our region stronger because we're connecting the next generation to our future job. That is something that is critical. Pittsburgh Public Schools, people have heard me talk about that. We need a relationship with them. We know that we got a lot of issues, not just in our Pittsburgh Public Schools, but throughout our city and throughout America. You know, violence is on the rise, and violence is always a distraction and a detour to why people don't do things or come into the city. We want to be able to work with Pittsburgh Public Schools, and we're going to need you. You know, we're going to need you because one of the things about removing people from poverty or violence is the fact that they have a job. If you give them a job, they put other things down. So how do we work as that being a component together to ensure that we're creating that level of infrastructure where people can have jobs? That's critical. Equity is big to me, and everybody knows it. You know, equity from a sense that we have to diversify this region. There's no question if we want to feel welcome. So diversity, to make sure that people, particularly with the report that came out about the gender and equity report about Black women, we should never be known for that. Never. That should never be. That should be a piece that we all feel. And we should all be trying to figure out how we solve that and change that image so we're not a city that's ever seen like that. And so to me, it means that you have to build the correct relationships and partnerships to really get things done. And that's why I'm happy to be here. Stephanie, Matt, I've worked with you through the years. So, you know, I know you and I know your hard work, your dedication, and I understand exactly how much you're committed to seeing this region grow. And I want to be a partner in that. So a lot of these meetings that you have, I will be at personally to help facilitate it. I think one of the biggest industries that's coming out of COVID is going to be tourism. And how do we deal with tourism? One way of dealing with the tourism is to be able to brand who we are. Who are we as a city? What is our motto? If I go to New York, I'm always thinking Big Apple. If I'm going to Philadelphia, I'm always feeling the city of brotherly love. If I'm in Virginia, it's for lovers. What is our brand? What is Pittsburgh? How do we come together? How do we ensure that we're branding ourselves in a ways that we're bringing the right tourism here so that people can understand this is a place where they want to invest? How do we create the right tourist attraction where from a diversity standpoint, people see the diversity in the city like ours that they want to come to? We got a chance to really grow this region. And like I've told everybody, I'm not here to transform this city. I can't do it in the time that I'm gonna be in office. I understand that. It takes 20 years for something to grow. But what I do know is that we can plant a seed of change and begin to see the return on our investment from it. And then every mayor behind us will have to water it because it's a demonstration of growth. But that can't happen just by government alone. No, never has and never will. It only happens when a region comes together, understanding what their brand is and what they want to accomplish so that they can get the right investments and also let people know that we're welcoming and open. As long as we do that, we can grow. There's no question about it. And I'm looking forward to working with you to ensure that we can do exactly that. So again, I thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I'd like to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Mayor Gainey. It's really an honor to have you with us. And as you noted and Stephanie noted, we've had a great working relationship during your time in the State House on a number of issues. Criminal justice reform is one, infrastructure investment, and working at the state level towards infrastructure investment is certainly another. And we just really appreciate your willingness, particularly with everything else you have on your plate, both expected and unexpected, as it were, with things like the weather, that you took the time out to join us today. So greatly appreciate that. And I'm always struck in the meetings I've had with you or watching you speak at different events since your election, since your historic election, that you talk about partnership a lot. And you've referenced the notion that the problems that the region faces and that the city faces are not those that are able to be solved just by the public sector or just by the private sector, but really need that collaboration between both ends, public and private, to make sure that we address those problems. So really appreciate your willingness to sit down with us today. Yeah, and I'll ask a few questions to get the conversation started. And then for our audience members, if you want to submit a question to Mayor Gainey, please go to the bottom of your screen to the Q&A link, and you can submit them via that link, and we'll receive them. And I should note, this is being recorded, so those who aren't able to attend can watch it. And also, if we have questions that are not answered, we'll certainly follow up with all of you and the mayor and his team, who have always been great in his short tenure in getting us information and a full communication. So Mayor, I just want to start the conversation with really recent events over the last 24 hours with the weather. Can you give us current state of play? We talked a little bit before we started about the plows being out there, the city roads being treated. Can you give a brief update on that before we get into some of the substance?
Yeah, everyone's heard me on the news talk about how proud I am of the Department of Public Works, and here's why. When we walked into here, they were running on equipment that was from 2011. It's 2022. They have not had no investments in their equipment. Their personnel was down. So when I say that that our personnel, these men or women, are working 16 hours throughout these snowstorms just to be able to clear these roads, I have to be proud of them, because at the end of the day, last year they didn't even show up for work. They're showing up. Matter of fact, in one of the snowstorms, for the first time, we had more personnel than we had trucks. That's how low we are on trucks. And so that's why we went to find discretionary funding to be able to deal with the snow by ordering 6 new trucks and also leasing 6 new trucks that should be here shortly. But that was the reality that we dealt with. And when I told my team when we came in here that failure is not an option, we'll go from failure to improvement, from improvement to growth, because I didn't want these men and women to feel like they were being beaten down. So I went around to every division to let them know that, listen, we're going to get you some resources that we can. It's not going to happen overnight. Matt, you've always heard me say there's no microwave meals in this business. Everything takes time. This is what we inherited. We didn't blame nobody. We said, if this is what we're working with, here's what we'll start with. So the day we got over 60 trucks on the road and they're ready, they're out there right now. They're going to go hard. They're going to be working 16 hours. If I have any type of, I'm proud of it, but if I have any type of fear, it's just burnout, because it's the same ones going over 16 hours, 16 hours, 16 hours. But they're willing to do it, Matt. I mean, they're willing to get out there. And all they're asking for is, hey, listen, give us an opportunity. And I told them they have the opportunity, and I will stand up for them every day as long as they're out there and give it 100%. And they have. And every snow, they've gotten better with the equipment that they have. We lost 10 an additional 10 trucks in the last snow, but we didn't cry about it. We just continue to push through and try to find more money in order to ensure that we can get out here and do these snows. So give them some time, because every snowstorm, they've gotten better. And they're working on the equipment that most people could never work on. And so I want people to know that I'm very proud of them when I say that, because they could easily say, the heck with it, we don't have no investment in public works for trucks or manpower while we out here. but they didn't. They're going to work and they're doing a heck of a job. So today we got 60 trucks out there. We'll be moving the snow. We'll be clearing it. We're asking people, if you can and you can stay in your house, stay in your home. If you don't have to go out, if you do have to go out, give yourself some distance between you and the next truck. Drive slowly. And if you know you're going down a hill, don't go. Go another route. This is about keeping our city safe. And this is what I mean by working together. We're going to do all we can from a city perspective. And if the residents, they stay in and they don't take these hills down these steep hills, that's working together. If you get an opportunity, check on the elderly, check on your neighbor. We know that we're a city of age and we should be checking on our elderly. Check on your family. That's how we get through this together. If you shovel snow, try not to shovel on the street. Shovel it in your yard or on the opposite side of the on the other part of a sidewalk where you can create a line. Create a path. But this is how we work together, and that's what you've been hearing me say from day one. We understood what we inherited, and we're willing to deal with it.
Yeah, thank you for that update, and thanks for the work you've done, not only in this storm, but I think this is at least the second large winter storm you've had in the last in your first 30 days in office. So it's
a second and a half. I call it 2.5. So I told everybody our first 30 days that if we came into anything, I would want to come in like this. 30 days from three storms to we're going to have to deal with Jim Rogers. We're going to the Republican National Convention, to the collapse of the bridge, to the coming of the president. That happened in 30 days, and I'm proud of my team because they've been able to respond to that. Where that type of weight may have wore other people down, my team stood up. And the reason why I'm so proud of them, again, Matt, you know this as being an elected official, that usually your transition period is from May to January. So you have a great opportunity in terms of time to ramp up. Our transition period was not from May to January. Our transition period was from November to January. And so when I think about the great work my team is doing, we got to understand that we're not even all the way staffed up. And so to not be all the way staffed up because of timing, but we're beginning to get there, and they're doing an incredible job that they're doing by being able to deal with the type of circumstances that we had to deal with. I'm very proud of.
Yeah, no, thank you. Just to pivot, one of the I think common threads in a lot of what you talked about in your opening remarks, from the brand of the region to tourism to economic growth, a lot of that is really dependent, not just for the city, but for the region, on a vibrant downtown. And we have that issue right at the top of our list, because we think it's critical for our ability not only to grow the region, but to also attract and retain talent. Our great companies here really are interested in ensuring that there is vitality downtown, there is life to it, and we know that the pandemic for every metropolitan area has been difficult. Can you talk a little bit about any near-term, maybe medium-term steps that you're looking at to create that vibrant downtown, and some of the discussions or ideas that you have on that space?
Yeah, Matt, I appreciate that question. So one is that I know we have a meeting coming up with some of the downtown stakeholders to begin having conversations so that we can know what their interest is, and they can know ours. I'm looking forward to that meeting, and I'm thankful for them giving me this opportunity to have that. One of the things that I talked about during the campaign, and I'm still speaking about, is how we clean downtown up. We have to clean downtown up. If not, it's never going to feel safe, which means if it doesn't feel safe from a perception, reality is people are not coming downtown because they don't feel safe. So I know that we have to clean downtown up. We have to make it look presentable to where people feel safe coming in. And that comes from a lot of different components. And that's why I'm looking forward to having this conversation with the business community downtown to talk about how we work together to clean downtown up. Also, we also know that, this is our city. And one thing we know about our city, where we live, is where we play. There's no question about it. So when people go home from downtown in the evening, they're not coming back downtown. They're going to go to visit the taverns, the restaurants, which are in their neighborhood. And that's why you've heard me say that we have to make downtown into the next neighborhood, because the more people that we have living downtown, the more the economy is going to flourish. That's a reality. So we want to talk to them about how they see that. I know that there's been a lot of talk, this matter about a conversion plan for a lot of their units commercial units downtown. I think we're fifth in commercial real estate, and we know that we're not going to be able to populate that like we did in the past. So You and I both know that they've been talking to the state about a conversion plan. So I'll be, look forward to hearing about what's going on with the conversion plan and how we can assist. Those are the things that we can do. And we also got to reimagine downtown. Like, what do we want downtown to be? Like, when I see downtown, the one thing that I noticed about it is that when we have like nights downtown, like light up night and things of that sort, downtown is populated. They come from everywhere, to be downtown. So we can make downtown vibrant, but we need a branding of who we are. Two, we need events downtown that's going to continue to bring people to our commercial corridor downtown. We see it, like I said, we see it with different events that we have, like, first night and all that, but I think we just need to expand on it. And that's where I believe that we can work with the business community to do just that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we, look forward to working with you and your team on that issue because, certainly from our perspective, we know that, a lot of the issues that we want to focus on and partner on, from education to workforce to infrastructure investment, from our perspective, those are difficult issues to tackle if it's not a growing economy, if we don't have a vibrant downtown that is able to attract that business investment and attract and retain that talent. So we very much look forward to working with you and your team on that issue because it is very much at the top of our priority list. Somewhat related, you touched on the notion that and we've had discussions around converting commercial space to residential and looking at pieces there that certainly would fit potentially into an affordable housing market within the downtown space. And during your campaign, you talked a lot about the importance of equitable economic and community development. Can you talk about what that means from your perspective? And also, I think for us, what role does the private sector have in advancing an economy for all, that where everyone has access to the opportunity that we all want to create in this region?
Matt, that's a great question, and thank you for the question. I don't think that we can really discuss equitable development unless we talk about equity and how we reach equity to demonstrate that we are a welcoming city. That's why in my transition team, I have a whole committee set just to deal with equitable development, because I believe at the end of the day, that is the growth sector, but also being able to convene, as you heard me say earlier, a table that will be, the convener on the table will be Jake Wheatley, I almost said Representative Jake Wheatley, Chief of Staff Jake Wheatley, to talk about our growth sectors, to discuss how we deal with our growth sectors to our universities, to our trades, and also to PPS, to begin that pipeline. Because a lot of times, and you know this as well, I know Stephanie does, because she's done a lot of work with Partners for Work, that we work in silos instead of working from a collaborative spirit. And I know Partners for Work has done a tremendous job of getting people to the table. And so I'm very thankful for them. But I believe that we need to start talking and getting out of our silos and begin to continue to communicate in a way that creates an infrastructure from PPS all the way to growth sectors. That's another part of equitable development. So one is an equity lens, because if we don't show diversity through our executive teams, if we don't show diversity throughout this region, then people can't believe in what they say we are. If we say we're welcoming, they have to see their culture reflective in commercials, reflective in business development. And so that's one equity. The other is workforce development. And then the third one to me would just be investment, and how we continue to nourish the investment that is really redefining this region, and working with the growth sectors such as AI, such as robotics, such as other technology, driverless cars and things of that sort. We understand that that's the economy of the future. The reality is moving that out of a silo and bringing it to a table that's being convened so that we can discuss from the growth sector to PPS, how we create this infrastructure to get people into these industries.
And just to follow up on that really quickly, I think that, that sort of intersection of where the jobs are located in workforce development is another area that we're very interested in general, but also specifically and more importantly in partnering with you and your administration. So if there's any thing we can do is we have had some discussions. Our chair of the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce is Brian Selesky, CEO and co-founder of Argo AI, one of our great autonomous vehicle companies. And we want to make sure that at that intersection of opportunity and workforce development, the private sector is supporting and assisting. So we look forward to that as well. One question that's come in that we, and you touched on infrastructure, Mayor, and I'm going to sort of combine a few questions here related to infrastructure and particularly touching on what happened last week with the Fern Hollow Bridge, reinforcing the need for infrastructure investment, the critical role that plays, the critical role that the public sector plays there. Can you touch on any new prioritization with your administration of bridge inspection repairs within the city? I know you're working with Councilman O'Connor, and I think you had an announcement within the last week or so addressing that issue. Can you talk a little bit about that specifically on bridges, and then maybe also how you view the importance of infrastructure investment? As I said, at the state level, you were a leader on ensuring that the state acts with regard to infrastructure investment. We know that there's a local role, but also a really critical state and federal role in providing investment for infrastructure to make sure that the burden is not disproportionately borne by local government. So can you talk about the bridge issue specifically, and then a broader issue around your thoughts on infrastructure investment?
Matt, that's a great question, and I thank you for it. Actually, I was getting ready to say that too. Just let me speak on infrastructure first. Let me say this. Last week we were fortunate. A lot of times people hear me say we were fortunate, but I just want to explain why I truly believe we was fortunate. Nobody wants to wake up to a bridge collapse. I mean, it was to see it firsthand, to be there and understand that you had no fatalities was amazing to me for a couple of reasons. One is we had a 2-hour delay, so there was no school buses that was crossing. That's number one. Number two is that because of the 2-hour delay, a lot of people that would usually jog down there or be down there wasn't down there. And I thought that was amazing. Number three is that they had to turn off the gas. When you see how that was cut, it could have, if that would have blew, you're talking about what, half a mile, that would have been impacted. That's number three. Like the bus if the bus would have been going forward and hit, would have been a problem. But because it was going backwards, there was safety. Cars turned over, but no fatalities. Like you can't make this up. And so for me to see that on the same day that the president is coming here to talk about the bipartisan infrastructure law, and no fatalities, no death, it was a day that for me, I'm never going to forget, because I've never seen nothing like that. And just the events of the day and how it went, you couldn't help, but if you wasn't touched by it, even if you've seen it on TV, something is wrong. There is no way. And as much as I love what my public safety did, I take my hats off to them. The response at the time was incredible. The information that they got that they had to have, they was on point with it. Everything that they needed that day, from the state to the local, from the state to the county to the level, even the local, even the feds, everybody jumped on board to make sure that everything was done appropriately and that everything worked well, turning off the gas, everything. And so we were very fortunate when I say that. And I can't, and as much as I give all the credit to the public safety entities, for me, it was just God was there, because no one passed away. And that's just amazing to me. So that's number one. The infrastructure dollars that we need is critical right now. And so the one thing that came about was me having the ability to talk to President Biden about why we need this. As us being a city of bridges, why that's important. And him being able to see firsthand how this bridge collapsed. Thirdly is the state. The governor came in. The governor took a look and said, hey, we're going to help you out. We're going to do all that we can. But this is also where I need the private sector also to discuss why infrastructure is so important. This is the partnership that I'm talking about. A partnership where we both go into Harrisburg talking to D's and R's about why this infrastructure dollars are so important and why we need to have them as a city of bridges built, a city built in the mountain, that we know our bridges will connect us to jobs, connect us to schools, medical facilities, and everything else. The most important topic right now in this region is infrastructure. And that's where we have to go together to tell our side of the story of why we need this money, not tomorrow, but right here and now. That's how the public and private can also work together, because it's going to be important that we get these investments so that we can make sure that we're repairing our connectors so that we don't have this issue again. I don't ever want to wake up and see a bridge collapse. And, we were fortunate this time. I don't know, I don't want to see this again. And this is a partnership that I need with you. I need you on this. I need D's and R's to understand the significance from Southwest Pennsylvania, mainly the city of Pittsburgh, to work together to get that infrastructure dollars in there so that we can take care and repair these bridges so this never happens again.
Well, Mayor, sorry to jump in.
Jen, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good, I'm good.
As we're talking about connectivity and infrastructure, you might have noticed that Matt dropped off. I think the power went out at some parts here out in the South Hills. So I'm going to jump in and hopefully take over. And I'm not too far from Matt, so hopefully I keep my power on here. But this is what we got to do, I guess, these days. But thank you for that answer. Actually, if you don't mind continuing on the infrastructure sort of discussion here, mobility and equity is also something that I know you've talked a lot about. And I know there were a couple of questions in the chat I've been following, sort of talking through how you envision the city to continue, really its role in leading with different mobility options, all the new transportation and technology that we've got coming in. I know our university systems, a lot of the work, and Matt mentioned Brian Selesky, our chamber chair at Argo AI, and Aurora just doing some really interesting and innovative things. How does all of this kind of factor into some of what you hope your administration can work on in the future?
Yeah, Jen, I think it's great. I think there's plans on the table that we can continue to massage and make great for this region, but also understand that when we talk about mobility, we also got to talk about equity. Because the mobility of our communities is also not only just from a transportation situation, but also from a public health. The ability to make sure that our sidewalks are done so people can walk on them, to make sure that our streets are safe so that people can get up and down these streets in some of these communities without feeling fearful. That's also major. Also the other mobility that we have out there, like the bike lanes and the scooters. I know some people feel different ways, but the more mobility we have for people, the better we're going to be to get people to move around in ways that improve public health and ways that improve public safety. And some of the initiatives that you just named that's being worked on, it's great. And when we talk about it from an equity standpoint, the reason why that's important is because we understand that in this city, we don't have any communities of color that is middle class. We don't have too many community, and we don't have no community of colors that is in the middle class. Everyone is in poverty. And so when we talk about mobility and creating an infrastructure that allows them to be able to get more access to opportunities throughout this region, not just in the city, but throughout this region, that's important, because that's another way of us talking about how we make this city a more welcoming city. And that should be our goal. In the middle of globalization and continue to see what's going on a national and global level, we need to be prepared from an infrastructure standpoint to be able to ensure that each community has access to the opportunity to get them to jobs, to get them to workforce development programs, to get them to a situation where their lifestyle is changing, one from poverty and more into the middle class. We have that opportunity through mobility and equity, but we have to look at it through an equitable lens that we're sure that we're moving the whole region forward, not just certain communities.
Thank you. You mentioned health in that comment, and I know you went into this a little bit earlier, but can you lay out just sort of some of the initiatives that you really hope to get to around public health, and how can anything from the sort of employer business community side that we can do to support those?
Yeah, this is where, again, this is a great partnership where I need you. People have heard me talk about it from my campaign that, we always come up with public safety plans. And in the midst of that, I'm happy because I believe that we can't do nothing without our public safety sector. Don't get me wrong. Our public safety sector is asked to carry a major load, and there's no question about it. And they have done it in the past. But I've always also said that public safety will never improve public health, but public health will always improve public safety. And so from that perspective, that's why I've been asking for a public health plan. And my team is beginning to work on how we assemble the right people for that commission to be able to talk about a public health plan. We have to, with the increase of violence in our community, we got to get away. We have to have a plan that talks about how we remove some of the barriers that we've had for so long: institutional racism, poverty, education, housing, drug and alcohol, and equity. We need to start in education. We need to start talking about, from a public health standpoint, how we deal with this. What's going on in our schools right now with violence? People say, well, what are we going to do? Listen, our kids, to be quite honest, if you went from a public health standpoint, our kids, they didn't start the violence. They didn't, they inherited. You're too young to start a culture of violence. The culture of violence was established way before they even got to school. That's our generation that created this culture. All they're doing is inheriting what we created. I mean, we fighting over masks. You know what I mean? We fighting over that. I mean, to the point where it's anger. We need a public health plan that addresses the pillars that I just said, to really talk about what we need to do to improve the overall society. If our only instrument is going to be public safety, we can't get there. Because at the end of the day, public health is the only way to get there. If COVID is a pandemic, what is violence? We are the only nation in the world that markets violence. Domestic violence, gun violence, stop the violence. In other regions, they talk about peace, peace treaty, peace solution, and peace in our street. We got to get away from marketing violence if you don't want to return on that investment. If the return on the investment is about how we create peace, then that's what we should be promoting. And that's the power of a public health plan, to give us a blueprint on how to get there.
Absolutely agreed. Thank you for that. We'll continue to also, work with you as you said, as a first step to getting to the safety issue is the public health. And so I know we're working at the conference level on that, but at the chamber level, on any public policies that you sort of have in mind, please definitely keep us in mind.
And that's why I need you to be part of it, because the reality is this: we're talking about business investment, real estate investment, commercial investment. You have to have a safe city. And that's why you've heard me say, I want to make this the safest city in America. We can get there, but we can't get there working in silos, Jen. We got to work together. So when we talk about infrastructure dollars, you heard me say, we need to go up there together to talk to the Democrats and the Republicans about why this is necessary. The conversion plan for housing, we need to walk together on why this is necessary. Reducing crime and creating peace in our streets, we need to work together to ensure that we get there. That's how cities that's growing is doing it. They're doing it because you're seeing greater collaboration between the public and private sector. You guys have been on the cutting edge of that for a minute and other rounds. So now we're talking about how we do it from a social perspective, a health perspective, a people perspective, because the more we improve that, the better our region is going to become. And in doing so, we make this a city that is welcoming for all. Once we do that, we've improved the image, we've improved society, and we made this a city that we want it to be.
And, sort of thinking through on the public policy side, Matt mentioned earlier that we worked with you on lots of criminal justice reform efforts at the state level. Do you have any, maybe this could sort of be a sort of first step, we'd love to partner with you on anything you're thinking about locally. Do you have any initiatives in mind that we might be able to?
Yeah, we have some, Jim, we do have some. Let us continue to flush that out, because what we're doing, a lot of it is what I started at the state level to see what we can do at a local level. But I just think that we have to change, for instance, there's an overdose every single day. Every single day. Every single day there's overdose. I get to see the crime reports now. And I might not see a homicide or a shooting every day, but there's an overdose every single day. That demonstrates how powerful this drug culture is. I tell people we've spent $60 billion or more on this war on drugs. We've incarcerated so many people in this war on drugs. We've continued to fund this war on drugs. But at the end of the day, we've got more drugs on our streets than ever before. Fentanyl, carfentanil, popping pills at a younger age. having NORCON parties just to be revived. This is serious out here. And in any other situation, we will be talking about how we change the model and what we have to do to save lives. And we're not doing it. And we just think that by incarcerating people, we're doing a great job. Let me tell you something. America been getting high since the beginning of time. She'll get high till her end. And there's nothing that we can do about it. That's the reality. I've known people that's been on drugs and they, when they get off drugs when they're ready. The problem is our investments has to be more in education, rehabilitation, and recovery, not incarceration. Because if incarceration was gonna move the needle, we would have less drugs on the street, not more. And so understanding that we need to have some serious conversation about how we address it. All that leads to a culture of violence. And that's why I said you need a public health plan to really begin to talk about how we deal with it. It's not easy. There's no one answer fit all, but what I do know, the investments that we made have been wrong. And the rate of return on our investment of tax dollars money has not saved lives. It's led to more drugs on our street. We need to change the paradigm.
We stand ready to help and stand with you on that. Let's change directions a little bit, if you don't mind. I want to get some of these questions in here. There's one on the arts and what role you see the arts playing in your vision of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, for me, the arts is major. Arts it defines life to me. So, working with the arts culture, working with different initiatives, I think it's also how we celebrate our diversity through arts and culture. That's one of the things that makes a city more welcoming, our arts and culture. Our arts and culture shows the vibrant of this region, our arts and culture. Our arts and culture tells the story historically of who we are and who we are now, which I think that sometimes we get away from. We got a heck of a story to tell in the city, but the city's never been documented in regards to telling our story. Arts and culture with our sports teams and celebrating the legacy of them and how they came to be, and neighborhoods and all the great people that's come out of these neighborhoods. I had a group of people come from Philadelphia, some state representatives, and they said, well, where's Georgie Benson's place at? Someone great like that coming out. And it's not reflective in our arts and culture. To diversify our arts and culture is only gonna make the city look more welcoming. And we need that, because we're competing with other cities that they believe in diversifying through arts and culture to give the image of a city that is open for all. And that's the image that we need right here. We must work with our arts and culture. We must demonstrate the level of diversity that continues to say that we're a city that's open and not closed, not only in the mind, but in the economy. So the arts and culture is reflective all throughout. And so understanding where we are now, but also thinking about where we want to go is how we create a direction for what we want to do with arts and culture.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. And I think sort of tying it to another question in the chat around talent and how we attract talent and the quality of life that we also have as one of our key missions here at the conference. It's imperative that we support that area of arts and culture. And so sort of then turning to talent, there's a question here about the colleges and universities in the area and trying to create a national campaign on Pittsburgh as America's best college city. Just a way to help attract more college diversity and students from outside of the region, and to continue that pipeline of workers, hopefully here in Pittsburgh and the region. So sort of any thoughts or comments, something like that?
I don't know too much about that initiative, but from the sound of it, it's great. I mean, we want to do that. But I've never thought that we've had a problem getting people to go to college here. I never thought that we had that issue. It seems like we get a lot of people to come here. They just don't stay. So to me, it wasn't whether we could attract, it's whether we retain. And that's not only from the college point, it's also from people that come here for workforce or come here in a position where they're going to get experience. I think the greater question is, how do we retain? And I think a lot of times when you think about retention and how we retain great talent here, they look to see how diverse this city is. They look to see if they can see themselves reflective in the city in regards to a culture. Because a lot of them have grown up in diverse cities. So that's what they're used to. And if it's not reflective here, then at the end of the day, Jen, they're not staying here. They'll come get trained, they'll come for the education. But we know, because we know the trends, they end up leaving. Because a lot of them, if you do an exit interview, they don't feel as if this city is represents the culture from where they come. That's not only in, people of color, but also white people. They feel the same way. And so when we talk about retention, we have to do a better job of saying, hey, we're open. People do come here. We know that. And at least listening to you guys, y'all used to tell me that all the time. People do come. The problem is they don't stay.
Yeah. I do see Matt back. Do you want me to kick it back over to you, Matt?
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that, Mayor. We power went off right in the middle, so my apologies.
We were in the middle of talking a little bit about talent, our universities and the talent pipeline of not only attracting college students here to Pittsburgh, but encouraging them to stay. And so, that competitive, very strong quality of life environment that we need to have. We talked a little bit about arts and culture and the need to really hone in on that a lot for the city, but I'll flip it back over to you if you guys want to continue the conversation. It was nice. I was able to jump in for a little bit. It was great to see you.
Jen, it's good seeing you, Jen. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen. You're a lifesaver, obviously. I apologize. Sort of continuing on the Brad question we got around, this is really a talent attraction and retention issue as well, is the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs that is up.
You cut off on, I couldn't hear you. You cut off.
I'm sorry. The Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs with the city.
Yeah.
And how you sort of view that office's role, and just in general the notion of being a welcoming city. You talked about this in your introductory remarks, and that is very much at the core, I think, of talent attraction and retention. The items that you and Jen were just discussing. So can you talk about that and maybe from the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs perspective, how that might fit in a talent attraction and retention strategy?
Yeah, I think again, we have to, that's part of becoming more welcoming, right? In order to understand and celebrate their culture is important, because they feel like this is where they belong, and we want them to feel that way. That's number one. Two is, supportive services, to make sure they got the right services around them to make that transition a little bit easier. Understanding that it is going to be a transition, and we want them to be here. We want them to stay here, and we want to make sure that they feel welcome. We also have the right supportive services. Also understanding that we have to diversify our language to ensure that we're giving information to them in a language that they understand. That's majorly important. And thirdly is job opportunities, being able to provide, again, this goes back to when you heard me talk about workforce development and the power of workforce development, by putting them in these workforce development infrastructures to give them an opportunity to hone skills or get skills so that they can move into the job market. All that provides for a good quality of life. So I just think those things that I mentioned are what we want to see in our office so that we can ensure that we're moving in the right direction. It's a great opportunity, but we can only get there. And again, that's where a great public-private partnership makes sense, because understanding that if we work together to get this accomplished, then we look good. We look good because we were able to help make this transition a little bit more easier for them. So, that again, that's another area where we can work together to ensure that we create this infrastructure.
Yeah, and sort of somewhat related with when we're talking about growing the economy, attracting and retaining talent. One of the really critical things that we've sort of honed in on is ensuring that the permitting and regulatory process, just for large scale developments and large scale economic projects, but also for those solo entrepreneurs who want to go out and start a business, many times have an idea they want to bring to the community. They want to start a business in their neighborhood, and making it as easy as possible for those individuals to become small business owners and to share in this opportunity. I know you recently announced again, on the permitting front, some new initiatives. Can you talk a little bit about how you view permitting moving forward, and how, as I said, there's a real common thread here between that solo, that small business owner who wants to grow their business and some of the large scale projects, and how permitting might be made better within the city as well.
Man, that's a great question. On the road campaigning, it's one of the things that we heard about a lot is dealing with permit licensing and inspections and what we need to do to improve. We're working on some things now, Matt, some initiatives that we believe will make a difference. That system is not going to change overnight. We're going to need a little bit of time to implement some things. It's only been 31 days since we've been in office, but we understand that's on the plate, and it's not like we've already begun to work on some initiatives to change some of the issues that's over there at PLI right now. And we will continue. And that's a conversation that as we get more, we hone in more on it and create what we think is a better system, that we can do things that I like to come back and talk to you about, particularly as the business community. One, as a way to get your feedback, and two, as a way to feel that we're moving in the right direction. We do know that there has to be some improvements over there, particularly from a technology standpoint and some others, to ensure that we're serving the community correctly. There are some things we're working on, but when we're complete with everything, I'd like to come back and have that conversation.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to work with you and your team on that, because, as I said, we're looking at how to expand economic growth and ensuring that it is for all. I think it's really critical for the largest of businesses, but also for those individuals who are looking to go out and start a business. So we look forward to partnering with you and your team on that as well. With just a couple other questions, Mario. One, you have talked both in some of the meetings we've had as well as publicly about the importance of public schools within the city of Pittsburgh, PPS, and I think that's a welcome dialogue, and we want to be part of that and work with you and your team. In the past, that relationship between boards, superintendents, folks on the other side, so to speak, within city government, may not have been as productive as we want. Do you feel like that can be a relationship and a collaboration that you can facilitate and grow and really work hand in hand with the Pittsburgh Public Schools leadership?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think that, understanding my lane, right? I think that a lot of times we get outside of our lane and we believe that we have control, but we don't have control, which is always going to create chaos and confusion, what ultimately ends up having a broken down communication system that fractures the relationship. I don't want that. I want to be able to work with the superintendent and the school board to ensure that we're doing what's necessary from a city perspective to help them any way we can. The other day, I went to Miller School. I believe I'm going to one next week to have a conversation with the kids and with the teachers as their fresh start. Because, part of this is making these kids know that they're valuable. Part of this is also making sure that the teachers know that they're appreciated. We got away from that. And I think this is a great opportunity, as they said, to reset and actually go in there and let them know that they have the support that they need. This, if we're talking about particularly the violence in school, I spoke about this earlier, it's bigger than the school district because our kids didn't start this violence, they inherited it. Violence was created by people our age. All they can do is inherit it. They're too young to start violence. And I think that this has to change on a lot of different mediums. I can go on social media right now, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, any of that, and people our age is spurring that anger. So if they're spurring that anger, what do you think that pours into children? And that plays out. There's a lot that has to be done. There's no easy answer for that. But in regards to a city or a region, or what we can do is we got to work together to make sure that we got the right protocols in place to be able to assist in an area that we know, not only from a city perspective, but a regional perspective that we must address. So it's not just up to the PPS to address this. We all have a role to play in addressing this because we know it's larger than schools. And so if we just want to say, look at the school and point the finger, that's not going to fix anything. If we're going to say, well, I want it my way and I'm not going to talk to the superintendent or I'm not going to talk to this person because they don't see it my way, that's not going to solve anything. Matter of fact, as I tell my team when we come into public, when we come into these meetings, check your emotions and egos out the door and get in here and let's tear this up and make an agenda that's going to be beneficial to this city. And that's the same thing that we got to do with the school district. We got to work together. You can't put them on an island and say, fix it. We got to come together and talk about how we fix it. And part of it is strengthening our communication patterns to where we're talking about some of the issues and where we can help, not point the finger and saying, look at what's going on, but jumping in and saying, hey, how can I assist you? Understanding my lane. And that's what I talked to the superintendent about, the interim superintendent about, of what I want to do. I want to work to resolve the issues. I'm not trying to take over. I'm not trying to tell them what to do. But what I am here to do is to be able to say, hey, listen, here's an idea. Here's something that we can talk about. But whatever direction y'all want to go that you feel is going to help rebuild these schools and give us an image that we are the best education in the world, create an infrastructure where public safety is honored in these schools and how we get there. Those are conversations not the school board should just be having. We all should be having that.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer and the notion of partnership and everyone having a role in that issue. We certainly view it the same way. And you know, sort of the way that we started this conversation was around the notion that, you know, the solutions can't be viewed as just public sector or just private sector. There's really a collaboration that needs to occur to address some of these large scale issues. And I think, you know, one of the things as we sort of wrap up and before I turn it over to Patrice to close, you know, I think one of the things that's, you know, really resonates with me in the discussions that we've had and then in today's conversation is the notion of partnership and trust and working to build a relationship that is based on trust where, you know, we, with any elected official, know there's never 100% agreement. There's never 100% agreement within offices, within administrations. But, you know, the fact that we, you know, want to have that basic trust and partnership with you and your administration is really gratifying to me. So I just wanted to make sure I expressed that from my end and my deep appreciation on that front as well.
And Matt, we do too. That's why, you know, one of the things I did was reach out immediately. You know that. And begin to talk to you, talk to Stephanie about how do we begin that? How do we hone in on that? So, you know, for me today I appreciated the fact that you had me on today because I believe that this is the way that we start. And again, you know, even if you would say, hey, from your perspective, can we do this quarterly or something? Let's talk about how we do that. But I definitely understand that I need a relationship with y'all in order to move this region forward. It can't be done just from the private sector and it just can't be done from the public. It's only going to happen when we come together. And you're right, we might not always agree, but that don't mean I don't respect nor honor your opinions on how we can move things forward. You know, if we in a situation where we know that this is good for the region, let's talk about it. Let's get there. Let's discuss how we get there.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to leave it, Mayor. And we would welcome the opportunity to have you know, a regular cadence of conversations with you and your team. I agree. This is the way that we're going to be able to address some of the issues that we've talked about for a very long time. And you know, really appreciate your willingness to join us and your willingness to join us in the future as well. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to our members. It means a lot to me personally. So I appreciate your work and I appreciate you joining us today, Mayor Gainey.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe and stay warm. Have a great one.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Investor Relations at the Allegheny Conference, Patrice Thompson, for closing remarks. But thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Mayor Gainey, for your thoughtful and powerful discussion and answering so many of our questions. We at the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce and Allegheny Conference on Community Development look forward to working with you to accomplish these goals. Before we close, we ask that all participants complete the short anonymous survey that is below, that will pop up on your screen. We are committed to providing interesting, timely, and informative content through our series. We hope that you will answer these few questions to help us plan events that are valuable to all participants. A final thank you to BNY Mellon for sponsoring the 2022 First Friday Speaker Series, and to Mayor Ed Gainey again for joining us to kick off our annual series. We are excited to share that our First Friday event will take place via Zoom March 4th, and we will feature Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf, who will discuss the 2023 budget. We look forward to seeing you on Zoom March 4th and hopefully later this year in person. Have a great day and stay safe.